I hope that wasn't shared to hundreds and thousands around the world.
Knows you're getting older, John.
As if that wasn't obvious, but good morning, everyone. I will save a thought for each of you, and thanks for that, and share it later in our day today. Good morning. Welcome to our class this morning, and welcome to our audience online. We are here today to have another opportunity to learn with Guy and to discover something new that we didn't know before, and to see if we can apply it in our lives today. So for those of you online who are joining us for this class today, perhaps for the first time, Guy will give about a 60-minute talk, and then after that we will take a 5-minute break and then come back for an open discussion in which the students here in the building and in the classroom with me and those of you online can share your thoughts. You can talk directly to Guy, you can write in questions and comments, and through that dialogue and through that exchange, all of us can gain a little deeper understanding of the material that Guy presented today. So we encourage you online to stay for the full broadcast. It'll last about an hour and a half or so, and do participate. And I think we're ready to get started. Students in the classroom, if you have a cell phone, just check it please and make sure you've turned it off. All right, let me read our topic for today and the key lesson, the first key lesson that Guy has written for us. Our topic is the first step to realizing the unimaginable fullness of your true self. And here is the first key lesson. The cost of knowing real beauty, of realizing all that is timelessly noble and true, is to be the emptiness into which it pours, and from out of which it will pour again.
Good morning, everyone. The cost of knowing real beauty. We're going to look at something very important this morning, or whatever day or time it is that you're joining us, for you. Because in this idea that if we ever want to know what is timelessly noble and true, and what human being doesn't long for a relationship with that which is incorruptible, we're going to have to learn what it means to be, as I put it, the emptiness into which those celestial characters and qualities pour into and then pour themselves out again and then pour themselves in again. I would think that most men and women would want to understand what is this strange visitor that comes virtually every day at some point, where there's a sense of something missing, I've got to do something, I've got to go somewhere. Things aren't quite right. There's a threat on the horizon. So that a person would begin to realize just how often it is that they feel a strange, obviously unanswerable sense of emptiness. And I say obviously unanswerable because you have spent your entire life, without exaggeration, running from a pain that you neither understand and running to a hope that you have that one day you will fill this space in yourself with whatever it is that you've imagined will do it, and then you'll be free. Speaker, 75 years old. Why did it take so long? And is that really the question, or is really the response? Thank God it's possible for a human being to realize that there comes a time in their life when, if they actually stop running from what they fear, they will find that their fear has no meaning other than what they have given to it without knowing it. It's a long journey in one respect, and yet it is taken step by step by step. And some of these individual steps are connected to new understanding that is intended to flower in your mind when you sit in the garden of the moment and allow it to grow in you and through you what it will. And most of us can't do that because we're too busy thinking about what we have to plant and what we have to harvest to be whole human beings. And that's our tragedy, honestly, as you'll see. So, come hell or high water, I'm going to explore this idea of emptiness with you. And I say that because most of us, A, don't want to know much about it. B, and whatever we do want to know about it, we want it to be a happy meal that we drive through. We fill our little tummies with all kinds of good goodies, and then we go home, have a nap, and then do it again. Eventually, your heaven turns out to be a hell you didn't recognize as such. And that's when you begin to understand something of the nature of heaven and your relationship to it, which requires that you understand something about what you call emptiness, and that you finally see you have no idea what it is because all you know is what you feel when you sense it and don't want what you have imagined. So, little education before we get going. The word nave, N-A-V-E. What is a nave? Not K-N-A-V-E, N-A-V-E. What is a nave? I'll leave it rhetorical so that we don't have to. Ellen was right there ready to tell us. Thank God for Dr. Ellie. I know. Were you one of those kids in class? There was always somebody that you really irritated you. They always, like Dr. Ellie, they always had the answer. They did their homework. Yeah. Interestingly enough, and I didn't know this until earlier, first of all, in what I'm about to read to you from the Tao Te Ching, a nave is the hub. It is the center into which all the spokes go. Has no existence outside of the spokes that go into it. But a nave is also called the heart of the church, the center of a church. And interesting, isn't it, that there were obviously wheels and naves before there were churches, so that they took this idea that there was a place into which everything was connected and which everything went around. It's very beautiful if you understand it as we hope to understand it. So this is from the Tao Te Ching. Let me read it to you. And I know some of you are going to, even if you don't log off, you're going to log out before I get done with this talk. And that's okay, because there will be those who do want to understand some of this unrelenting pain and the unrelenting part of your mind that fills it with every opportunity it can with something that it fears or worries about because it doesn't know what to do with that space in itself. From the Tao Te Ching. 30 spokes meet at a nave. Actually, there are quite a bit of spokes that meet at a nerve, aren't there? 30 spokes meet at a nave. Because of the hole, we may use the wheel. Clay is molded into a vessel. Because of the hollow, we may use the cup. Walls are built around a hearth. Because of the doors, we may use the house. The tools come from what exists, but the use from what does not. Thus the tools, the wheel, the cup, the door, thus those come from what exists, but the use comes from what does not. Without the emptiness, the hub, without the cup, the emptiness of the cup, without the door, you can't get into a house. So the emptiness is the entrance into the facility. Now, I don't know about you. When I used to read these things, I'd feel a certain pang. Honestly, it was a kind of longing. Because I realized back then, what's trying to talk to you here, Guy? I don't have a clue what this means, but I know there's something very significant in it. because I long to know the deeper meaning of it. So it should be for all human beings, whether they read it in the New, Old Testament, in the Bhagavad. I don't care where you read or hear it. You hear something truth. I used to call it, you should be like, I love dogs. A dog, you're talking to a dog and it feels a certain new emotional tone, or it hears something and it goes. And what it's trying to do is understand it. But the only way it understands it is it's trying to get the direction from which that impression is coming. So it's, in one respect, moving to one opposite to another to try to bring together an understanding that it can't, even if it comes to peace with it, can't understand. It just enters into it. How are we to understand this idea of a space that doesn't exist, but without its existence, nothing would be of any use? Do you understand where we want to go today? So I have a story to simplify this idea, and then we will go back into it rather deeply so that we can do what? Why are we... Oh Lord, why am I here? Why are we gathered together in the name of truth? Because something in us begins to understand that we know not the truth, and for not knowing the truth we suffer terribly. Because we have known that when we do find something true, our suffering is at least reconciled to some extent. And the lessons that were hidden in that suffering are finally made evident to us. And as we learn the suffering and the reason for it, lo and behold, the lesson for everything that was pouring into that moment is fulfilled. So the moment was empty until it was filled with the understanding. And from the emptiness was the request that something could come into it and create the new understanding that was necessary to transcend the fear or the doubt or the worry. Yeah. A good man and his wife living in the city with their young son, who will put around the age of 6 or 7, I don't know, about there, realized as he was looking at his boy that his boy was becoming lost. And the father, having wisdom, and the mother understanding and wanting to support that understanding that was shared with them and between them, knew that something had to change and that it was their responsibility, in the truest sense of the word, not just to see that their son would be brought into a new understanding that wouldn't be so connected with the love of images and the sensation born of surfing iPhones and looking in windows to buy things that he doesn't need, filled with desires that can never be answered no matter how much they give him. One day you'll feel great sorrow for your unconscious participation in producing a world that is punished by its own desires. So the father said, I bought a farm. We're moving to the country. And when he looked at his son went, what? Yeah, there's no internet out there either. I'm not going. Really? Good luck, son. So off they go to the country, and his dad was pretty well ahead of it because he had seen certain tendencies. You know, you can learn to see your own tendencies long before they become a total torment to you. That's how they cease to become. That's how you learn to say enough when it comes to these things. Off they go out to the country. And when they get there, the father, being a good father, wanting to teach his son a lesson that one way or another he had to have learned. You and I are learning the understanding intellectually, and God willing at some part emotionally, of the miraculous lessons that were sown into this world, that individuals before yourself shouldered the burden of being the incarnation of. so that through a living will and a living testament of these individuals, these truths could be passed along to those who began to hunger and thirst for something that couldn't be answered by all they had given themselves as answers to life up to that moment. And the Father, knowing this, began with his Son to build a bunch of birdhouses. Now, the kid didn't understand birdhouses. He'd seen a few documentaries, but they were boring. But little by little, as they built these birdhouses and put the food in them, first came 10 birds, and then 20, and then 30, and the next thing, there were 40 or 50 birds all hopping around these different birdhouses. And the boy slowly became totally enamored with, it was like watching something better than his iPhone, because it was alive. And he could interact with them, and he could feed them, and he could participate in the movement of their life. And he loved the sense of himself that was a derivative of feeling all of this movement born of different shapes and different colors. He was discovering something about himself that he could not have learned in any other way. So the more and more birds came, he grew to love them. He got to the point where he wanted to get up in the morning and watch them. Now, the birds represent in this story, for the sake of it, a new understanding. He was beginning to realize there was another kind of life that was available. But about several months later, as things would be, the birds started going away. And as the birds started going away, the father, watching the boy, could see that the boy was bothered because here had come all the birds, and now, little by little, the birds were disappearing. First the little nuthatches, then the towhees, and then the grosbeaks, and bit by bit, they just all disappeared until all of the feeders were empty. The little boy's spirit sinking as the birds went away. You can understand this, can't you? Why? Because he had grown to love the birds, but part of his love of the birds included being identified with the sensations that they gave him as he interacted with them. It was unavoidable. It's unavoidable. So sinking slower and slower, finally, the father, knowing what says, "What's going on with you, boy?" And his dad says, "Well," he says to his dad, "Where did the birds go? Where did the birds go?" His father looks at him and he says, "Well, they'll be back." "When?" "Well, I can't say exactly when, but they'll be back. I want them here now. I don't want the birds to come back," he was saying in his own language. You understand that. Father says, "Son, listen to me." Knowing that his son could not understand this, but sowing the seeds in his son of a new understanding that one day would be fulfilled through the boy's own experience. Would it that you could only sow into your children and friends and relatives the lessons that one day, God willing, they will appreciate, and if they don't learn to appreciate them, that you can wipe your hands of your responsibility to them, because you did what you were given to do and be. Father says, "Son, everything has to move on. Everything has seasons, including birds. And there's a season for the birds to be here, and then there's a season for them to leave." No. He didn't say this, but I'm season schmeason. Why? The great cry, isn't it? Why? God, I can remember some of the whys in my life. Whew. Why? Son, that's the way things are. You're not whining enough. Why? Why has a lot of tones, doesn't it? Father looks at his son knowing what will come of what he's about to say. He says, "Son, you're just going to have to learn the truth of these things yourself. I've tried to explain it to you. You're not interested in the explanation. You're just going to have to learn, as my parents used to say to me, learn how? The hard way." Birds all gone, little boy feeling what? Betrayed. And when he feels betrayed, what are the thoughts and feelings in his head? Tell me some of the things he's thinking. Where did they go? What can I do to get them back? Do I need more feeders? And that's what he did. Built more feeders, put more seed out. That didn't stop him. Just like you have more plans, more hopes. And none of that does anything, so the more it doesn't do it, then he begins to think, well, did I scare them away? What did I do to scare them away? And then finally, why did they leave me? Look, I'm explaining to you a consciousness that still remains in us. Why did they leave me? Why did they have to be like that when I did so much for them? Do you understand that? And he sinks to some strange state, but then, lo and behold, fast forward 5-6 months later, what happens? The first 10 birds come, then 20 birds, and then now there's all kinds of birds. In fact, different birds than before. And now he's thrilled again. And the little boy, oh, new birds. I love new birds and old birds. Beautiful. And so he goes through the same iteration, but then 3-4 months later, what starts to happen? 10 birds go away, 20 birds go away. Little by little, the birds are gone again. And the boy does what? Begins to sulk again. This happens for a long time. And it went on and on and on. Until what happened? What had to happen so that that little boy could begin to deal with his demands, that he be filled as he wishes to be filled by the moment he sees as part of his demands? It's ever so simple. It's frightening, actually. It took him 20 years or more to actually understand. Are you ready for this big lesson? Birds come, birds go. And that what he wants has little to do with what life wants. Say it. Birds come, birds go, and it has very little to do with what life wants. You're free. Well, first of all, can you see that if you actually understood that, you would have no problem with anything that came, you would celebrate it. But you would understand that when it leaves, leaving is in fact part of the celebration that you had, because it wasn't until that moment filled itself again, with this instance with birds, that a person starts to understand that there's another order of life altogether that has very little to do with what I want. And the life that I want isn't the life that I get, because the life I want is filled with demands. And have you ever thought of this? Could a person ever feel as if they're empty, as if anything's gone wrong, I've been left? Could a person feel that way unless that moment somehow or other was failing to fill itself with what they had imagined was required? So that the pain of what we call emptiness cannot be separated from the sense of fullness that we derive from imagining the life that we want to create for ourselves, and that we want everyone to populate according to our pleasure. And when the birds leave, when the conditions don't work out, suddenly I'm lost, I'm alone, I'm empty, and why have I been betrayed? And there's the bitterness. That's why you see hard faces that you do. That's why you see people walking around with chips on their shoulder, or filled with a face that's or filled with anxiety that causes the face to be tense. Hands locked in place. Because every moment is trying to figure out, are the birds coming or are the birds going? Transition. Ready? Do you understand the first part? And do you get the idea of this idea that there's this emptiness? And that the emptiness serves a very distinct purpose? Because if the birds didn't come to fill the emptiness, there'd be no joy that the birds were there. But if the emptiness includes the fact that the birds have to leave it because the birds come and birds go, then what would happen to a person who starts to understand that when everything seems to be going, that's no reason to be angry or afraid? Because it's part of another movement, of another order of life itself that we don't know anything about, where the life that we, that we can learn the truth about what life wants. This is what true classes are about, to learn what life wants. We think that what life should want is because we were on the advisory board of the divine, filling in the blanks of how it should fulfill what we want. But that's not obviously the case, is it? Because what do birds do? Life is asking for one thing only. Life is asking that we see that it never stops giving us what it has asked for. The one thing that life asks is that we grow to see that it never stops giving us what it has asked for. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Why? Because every want that appears in me that is natural and in order, the emptiness out of which where does a want come from? Does a want come from fullness? No. Everything that one wants begins with a certain kind of emptiness and a misunderstanding of it in this world. But when you are given everything that you want, it's because you realize the moment the need appears, so does the solution to it. Wouldn't that be a different kind of life? Suddenly I feel afraid. I'm anxious. I feel like I need something. I need something. I don't understand the need. I understand what my mind tells me has caused that need and what I have to do to answer it. And my mind never fails, does it, to give me some kind of answer, some kind of thought or process or plan by which to get rid of the pain of that sense of emptiness. Yes or no, please? We need a new understanding of emptiness. It isn't a stretch of imagination for me to tell you this, even though you may not want to. Until you understand the nature of emptiness, you will fill yourself with everything foolish and in vain until you drop this body. So what I want to do with you now is look at this deeply. I've prepared a kind of an overview, an expanded key lesson that we're going to go section by section so that we can read and work and study together through this understanding. Can we please bring up the expanded key lesson? Diligently, please, attentively read with me. This is not the special writing. You can download this. Is that right, Kate, Eric? Yes. Any attempt to bring an end to your sense of feeling empty serves only to strengthen the illusion of a false self that believes it can outrun its imagined nothingness. Both illusions are filled with real enough terror, yet neither can be slain any more than a shadow can put to death by a knife. Any attempt to bring an end to your sense of feeling empty serves only to strengthen the illusion of a self that believes it can outrun its imagined nothingness. How long have you been trying to outrun your fear that you aren't enough? Because in the end, that's all the fear there is. Not that you don't have enough, because you measure yourself by your possessions. Not that people don't love you enough, because you measure yourself by what you imagine they want and need from you and that you can give them. We run all the time from a certain imagined self that believes it can outrun its imagined emptiness. How do we know that that emptiness is imagined? Please work, please, for your sake, not for mine. I understand what I'm talking to you about. How can I know it's imagined emptiness? How can I know that? I'll ask you, how can I know it? Because I filled it 100 million times. And not just with the pursuit of my ambitions, But with every thought that floods into that sense of emptiness inside of myself, of inadequacy, every last one of those reactions pouring in, driving me to do what I need to do so that I can get to the end of this sense of inadequacy. And no matter what I pour into that bucket, it pours out as fast as I pour into it, doesn't it? So what does that mean about that emptiness? What does it mean about that emptiness that I fear? It has to be as imagined as the things that I pour into it, doesn't it? And both of these things, this sense of self and the illusion of its nothingness, are filled with real enough terror, aren't they? God, what happened here? What's this mean? Now what's going to happen? Oh my God, look at you. You're disintegrating. These are voices you hear as you get older. You're dying. You're on the way out. Oh no, what do I do? More vitamins, machines that exercise me for me because I don't have the energy to do it myself. What do you think the world sells you? Something to make your face look beautiful like it did when you were 20. And by the way, it doesn't. All it does is let you see what you want to see at the cost of your own real health. Back to the story. Can that be slain? Can that sense of imagined emptiness be put to death by anything you do to it? That's why I say, can a shadow be put to death by a knife? Next paragraph, please. On the other hand, to allow emptiness its life, whenever it may appear, slays both the painful illusion of it as well as the false sense of self that's so fearful of it. Then real emptiness and her beautiful sister fullness appear at the same time, revealing their timeless secret. They are celestial twins who are never apart from one another. Yin and yang are celestial twins. Active and passive are celestial twins. Denial, affirmation, celestial twins. Can you see? Am I going too far? I'm trying to bring you in. Do you see it with me? Yes. They're never apart from one another. There's never an emptiness that isn't connected to a fullness that we cannot see because all we identify is with the birds have come, the birds have left. Please, still with me? Last part of this paragraph, or this third part of it, please. They only seem to be separate, these celestial twins, yin, yang, active, passive. Why? Because each is so overwhelming to behold by herself that to look at just one blinds you to the existence of the other. When you see emptiness, do you see the fullness that is connected to it? When you're suddenly full of resistance because something in you is trying to push away what's acting on you, are you aware of the fact that something is trying to bring about a change in your nature? Or is all you're aware of is the thing you don't want or the you that doesn't want it? That's all there is, isn't it? Just one opposite or the other. But your work is about not just learning intellectually that these opposites aren't opposing each other, they're celestial twins. They belong to each other. Bring up the last part, please. Within you, only still sleeping, lives a higher order of being that neither fears the momentary appearance of an imagined emptiness, nor does it imagine some new sense of some new sense of fullness to escape that fear. Within you, only still sleeping, lives a higher order of being that neither fears the momentary appearance of this imagined emptiness, nor does it need to imagine some new sense of fullness to escape that fear. Isn't that the dynamic when this happens? In-breath and out-breath, seemingly separate. Is the in-breath and the out-breath separate? Can you just have an in-breath? Some of you try to. They are dual aspects of a single body. so as it is with what you call emptiness. So we need, if you're understanding this with me, a new understanding above and beyond what we've outlined so that we can start through this new self-knowledge to do what? What am I trying to do here? What are we exploring? Do you ever wake up in the morning and feel like, what do I do? Yes or no? Or if not, what do I do? I gotta go do this. Urgency is the impossible state of trying to escape emptiness through what your mind has imagined will bring an end to it. Is your life not filled with urgency? It can be anything, can't it? The urgency of addressing this problem. Why do I have to address this problem? I got to fix you. Why do I have to do that? Because something in me is terribly empty as a result of what you said or did, and now I have to reconcile this myself. I have to get it squared away so that I can go back to my imagined peace when the birds are still there. Yes? New self-knowledge, inseparable from new eyes, like Christ spoke about, new eyes that see what? We've been alluding to it. Emptiness can't exist without somethingness. Emptiness can't exist without somethingness. And somethingness that exists and waits to fill it. Put up the second key lesson, if you would. Just let this come into you. Without the emptiness of a dark sky, we could not see the fullness of a starlit night. Without the emptiness of a dark sky, could you see the stars that fill it? But when we look at the stars, we don't see them and understand that they're there because of the emptiness that allows us to have the relationship with them, does it? And yet in the fullness of that experience, it isn't just the stars that twinkle up there. It is the great endless depth and dimension of something that is so vast, the mind becomes still to take in all that is revealed in that emptiness. And lo and behold, it isn't empty. And lo and behold, it isn't just filled with stars. Lo and behold, I am the vessel into which, empty at first, now pours this impression, and made whole accordingly. Please? How can it be other than that? As above, so below. This is what we're looking at. As above, so below, these laws. And if it's true, what I've just described to you, here's this vast empty sky. Is the sky full because the clouds are in it? Or is the emptiness of the sky revealing to you a kind of fullness that's constantly changing as forms move into and through the emptiness, changing seemingly the sky when it isn't the sky that's changing at all? It's the impression pouring into the soul that's willing to experience the impression without preconceived notions of whether those are good clouds or bad clouds, whether this is a fortunate star or an ill-fortuned star. Please, yes? And if it's true out there, it has to be true in here. The same thing. How do I say this to you? What we see out there is our consciousness. We don't understand our consciousness is, how shall I say? It is a place into which everything pours, and it is a place from out of which everything pours. And the consciousness, the Christ, that which is divine, is neither enhanced by what comes into it, nor is diminished by what leaves it. Do you see, when the birds come, do you not feel enhanced? They flattered me. I got a check. I don't ever get one, but that would be, the birds had come. And then I get the government, and then the birds go. I'm trying to show you something, that there is this seeming difference between active, passive, yin, yang, denial. It seems like there's a difference between them because we're always in one side of another, identified with they've come, they've gone. But if you want to be a free human being who doesn't punish others and who stops punishing yourself, you have to start recognizing that who you are, your true nature, is this unimaginable place that you fear when it is empty. And because you fear it when it's empty, you fill it with emptiness. And then when the emptiness proves itself to be emptiness, what do? You go, oh my God, this didn't work. I'm empty. I need a new plan. And you fill it again. And that's how, by the way, that's purgatory. Purgatory literally is, they have Sisyphus rolling that stone up the hill and only have it come back. Purgatory is a human being with a bucket full of desires that they can answer in the world and pour everything in the bucket, but as soon as it goes in the bucket, it's pouring out the bottom. So they just have to keep slaving over that water, a body of imagination, filling and filling and filling and filling and wondering why? Oh, this will do it. And it doesn't. It doesn't. Look how simple it is. It doesn't. But boy, is that hard to come to grips with, isn't it? Because for one thing, I'm in the grip of something that absolutely is mechanically, ceaselessly filling itself with what it needs to reconcile the pain that it's in, the sense of emptiness that visits it. That's all I know. That's why I spoke on Saturday about this idea of enough. Start realizing, you know what, how many times am I going to go to the well, fill the bucket, and find out that the water in the well is as imagined as that which I hope to fill the bucket with, as the bucket I'm trying to fill. They're both imagined. Resistance does what? What does resistance tell me? Because do you, when the birds left, did the boy go, oh good, the birds are gone, or did the boy resist that? So when the birds go, when somebody says something that you don't like, somebody challenges your exaltedness, whatever it may be, when that happens and the birds go, do you go, oh, that's great? No, what do? I go looking for a way to make you pay to get something that will get rid of this sudden sense of myself as being somehow or other in pain because of you. Because the birds left. So here's an important point. Emptiness does not, at least the way we perceive it, we perceive emptiness, no, how do I say that? We perceive these unwanted moments as an implied emptiness, an implied nothingness, don't we? But if you've understood what we've been looking at, then you understand that the resistance to what seems to be nothing or empty is actually something that we can understand. That moment isn't empty of its possibilities at all. The reason it seems empty is because I'm only looking at one side at the time. So I can begin to realize that, how do I see, this is what if I could just, I'm alone. I'm so angry. What am I going to do? In that moment, the only possibilities that level of consciousness has, it believes it must somehow attract or buy new birds to bring into that bird house so as to change the relationship with the moment. I'm trying to show you that what you call empty is so full of possibilities you can't imagine it. If you've understood anything that I've said, is it not a circulation? Are yin and yang, active and passive, separate? Or are they in a constant interaction of intersecting forces producing a new conception all the time? So you can see, can't you, celestially, this is nothing but perfect possibility. Yes or no? Are you not so-called the crown of creation? Did God not make you in its image? And by the way, its image, that word God then was not Jehovah, it was Logos. And Logos is all of the various forces and their relationship and interaction forever bringing about a new creation, level after level after level. So you and I, we have these moments where I look and I'm like, Jesus, I don't want to do that again. Why do I have to be sick? What's this gonna mean? That in that moment, you without knowing it have shut off the influx of that which waits to pour into the state that has come to you for the sake of you to see that whatever is coming into you is there to reconcile the illusion of a self that's apart from the movement of the life. You able to put this together? We have to see the truth of this, not think it. And to be able to do that, you need something that most of you have almost none of. And that is your own attention. You believe that when you're uncomfortable, when you're upset, when you don't want something anymore, when you want to escape a moment, you believe that your mind, feeling that disturbance, having identified it, tells you the source of that problem. And then you believe that if you can just get out, get away from change or control, the moment that you think when the birds have gone, then the birds will come back and you'll be back to being content with yourself again. You will never know contentment until you understand that emptiness is the source of contentment, just as that which flies from emptiness brings about the possibility of another order of contentment. An escalating realization instead of a degrading, constant, unconscious relationship with life. Bring up the last key lesson, please, which is a summary of today's talk. If you have any energy or attention left, please be with me. Any sense of a dreaded emptiness that we resist is really just being full of not wanting the moment we're in. I'm going to read it again. Any sense of dreaded emptiness that we resist is really just being full of not wanting the moment we're in. But when we understand that emptiness is a divine state of being, we realize that not only is it a requirement of creation, but it is an aspect of a trinity greater than the sum of its parts. So that the more we will agree to step into whatever may be the emptiness we fear, the sooner will the nature of the divine empty us of our fear. You always answer what you believe is a disturbance. And until you understand that the disturbance is a moment in which something in you is suddenly emptied of what it wanted or expected or hoped would happen or needs to happen so that you can be who you are back in your comfort zone. As soon as you understand that that moment is an invitation for life to bring you into an awareness, a conscious relationship with its own divine celestial movement, until you understand that you're outside of the movement, you're outside of the divine. I didn't have time to put this in the talk, and I'm going to try to bring an end to it here with this. I realized when I was looking at these ideas, what a misnomer it is. And a terrible thing. And it's because the level of consciousness, this level of consciousness, your religious leaders, your political bosses, everything across the board that you conceive as being an authority is itself part of an unseen, unconscious, inhuman conspiracy to continually corrupt the possibility of a human being having a relationship with this living movement that I've described for you. The saying is, wait on the Lord, isn't it? Well, to wait on anything, I'm waiting on something outside of myself. Aren't I? Learn to wait on the Lord. In other words, bring into your idea, that moment, the idea of patience, because if you have faith, then God will surely rescue you. Learn to wait on the Lord. So now what you're really waiting on is the hope in your own sensation-filled experience of an image that gets you through the moment. Only the problem is it's as empty as the moment that you're trying to fill. Please, do you see it? How do I know that's true? God, I've been waiting on the Lord a long time. Lord's come, Lord's gone. When the Lord goes, where did he go? I need him back. Why did he leave me to begin with? We never ask these questions of ourselves. I was saved. Well, why are you so angry? Why do you have enemies? Why do you still drool over the idea of food or money or whatever pleasures it may be, and you can't wait to run to it? And why do you run away from moments where you're being shown something true about this life? And why do you run to a God to save you from a life that's imagined when the God you run to is as imagined as the life you're running from? You have to see that. Then you understand why they said, wait on the Lord. That creates time, that creates the need for an authority, and that creates you who will be a supplicant to whatever they sell you as a sucker so that you can support whatever their emptiness is. It's not wait on the Lord, it's wait in the Lord. But you don't have to go looking for it. It's already there. It's inseparable from your nature, your true nature. But to understand it is inseparable from your true nature, you're going to have to go through the process of a conscious separation from who and what you think you are and what you continue to try to do with your life to escape what? What am I trying to escape? I'm trying to escape my life. It's not enough. You ever heard the expression a pregnant moment? You are the pregnant moment. But it's aborted by a consciousness that doesn't understand that the seeming emptiness. I try to find, pictures for you to see. Maybe you never see it like that, but do you not think that the seashore waits for the waves? Would there be a seashore without waves washing up on it? And are the waves that wash up on the seashore separate from the seashore upon which they wash up? Or are they a complementary, complete picture of a relationship between forces, planetary and celestial? And all of it's right there in the emptiness that is filled. The fullness washes back. The emptiness doesn't go away. It's still there. Why? Because it's part of that. That's what real life is. That's what life is trying to bring you into. But you can't come into that life when you're occupied. And what am I occupied with other than trying to get the birds back or keep the birds that have come? I know how difficult it is to understand this idea of the hub of the wheel has no purpose without the spokes. The spokes have no purpose without the hub. The cup has no purpose apart from the emptiness that holds the water. The human being has no purpose other than the emptiness into which the divine pours itself and pours itself so that something new can be made from the union, so that that perfection can be revealed and a human being can find his or her real place in this seeming emptiness that is actually fullness. Let's take a break, come back and have our dialogue.
Welcome back, everyone. I have a smile on my face just because I love how that last note on that piano piece there just makes us lift our hearts just a little bit.
When you hear these announcements start, it's time for you to stop.
Welcome, everyone. Before we begin our discussion with Guy, just a couple of announcements and reminders for you all. The first of which is our weekly schedule. During the week here, the Life of Learning here, we sponsor classes throughout the week, and we invite you to join us for all of those. Besides our Sunday morning class at the start of the week, Guy also speaks again on Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m., and that is our Discovery Wednesday class. I hope you can join us for that. Friday evenings, we have a student-led class at 7 p.m., and that particular class is one that is always based upon the talk that we just listened to, the Sunday talk. It is a chance for us students to work with the ideas that Guy presents today for a week, and then gather as a group and share what we've learned from it. So I hope you can join us for that. And then again, at the end of the week, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m., Guy speaks on insighttimer.com, a 45-minute live session. So please do join us throughout the week as often as you can. And for all of our online classes with Guy, the Sunday and Wednesday classes, those are videotaped and archived, and you can always come back and watch the replays of those when it's convenient for you if you can't watch them live. Finally, just a reminder, as always, that we are a nonprofit organization, the Life of Learning Foundation, and for 30 years, our mission has been to share these ideas with all of those around the world who could be helped by them, and we grateful for the support that you have given us throughout the years, and are not shy in asking for help in pursuing that mission. So if you'd like to help us with it, you can go to our website at guyfinley.org/donate, and there you can find many different ways that you can contribute both financially and in other ways that will help us pursue this mission and to share these ideas around the world. So thank you for those of you who are helping us, and thank you to those of you who may help us in the future. All right, let's return to the classroom. Guy has a special writing that he wrote for us today that I've heard that he wants to present and share some ideas with. So I'll turn it back over to you, Guy.
Thank you, John. I did prepare a special writing for today's talk. In one respect, I would tell you it was quite the reverse. The special writing gave birth to the talk that you got. So this is the seed from out of which, if you consider the talk to have any fruit in it, that vine and branch and what grew on it today came from. I ask you, when you can put away your things that have their time and place, but you must understand the difference. I ask you to see this special writing as a kind of understanding of the whole of what we looked at together. It's called Lights Along the Way. How I love to wander through fields of light, stopping here and there to see and to stand in silent awe as from its ground flowers never-ending insight, gently asking me to remain there long enough to give each newborn revelation the love it needs to die. Asking me to remain there long enough to give each newborn revelation the love it needs to die. There is birth, there is life, and there is death. And they are not apart from one another. Each is an aspect of a soul nature greater than the sum of its parts. You and I, to whatever extent it's possible for us because of what we have decided is most important to us, are actually living in, like I said, wait in the Lord, living in, for all intents and purposes, a field of light. We don't see light. Light is the emptiness in which forms appear. Isn't it? And as a participant in the whole of that revelation, it means that in that field of light, you and I, as intended, as creatures intended to reconcile, as creatures intended to be that which gives itself to that which comes into it, so that that which comes into it and that which I have been can no longer be as I have been, and something new can come out of it. And that's a singularity, like a river. And it is a stream, if you want, the ground, as I put it here, of never-ending insight. Look, how do I say this to you? I'll speak personally. For me, there is nothing more beautiful, valuable, pleasurable in anything in the world than the moment in which suddenly, because I am in the place and willing to accept it, there is an epiphany about this broader relationship of what it means to be in the Lord. That's it. Now, you may not be there, and I understand it. We have appetites. I mean, God help us. But you see, the beauty of God is that he changes what you hunger for. But you can't change what you hunger for until you see that what you hunger for is more of yourself. And it becomes not the sweetness of a pleasure fulfilled, but the bitterness of recognizing that nothing was fulfilled and I'm not free. I was deceived. So it's in the humility of seeing where I've been complicit in this deception that I'm invited to spend more and more time in that field of light that showed me the fact of that. And to remain there long enough to give each newborn revelation the love it needs to die, to let it come in its fullness and let the birds go, so that the ground can be ready again for the birds to come and the birds to go. And in the true inner life, the possibilities are not separate from each other. They are a movement, and you are the ground of that movement if you begin to understand what we've talked about. You can download this if you wish. So I'm done. I've cooked my own goose again.
All right, Guy, we'll get ready for our conversation then.
Yeah.
With our students online and both in the room. For those of you online, if you wish to send in a written question or comment, you can do that through your various forums. And those of you on GoToWebinar, you can simply click the hand icon and you can talk directly to Guy. And of course, students in the room, you can just walk up to the mic.
And we have Barbara.
Hello.
All right, Guy.
Hi, everybody. I got a chance yesterday to see this imagined fullness and emptiness of Barbie. At night, when Doug and I are having dinner, we almost always go into our office to eat because that's where we watch TV. And yesterday evening, as I was leaving, Doug said to me, "Don't forget to take your plate." And I'm like, "What do you mean, don't forget to take your plate?" Am I the kind of person who would leave a plate of chicken bones on the table?
Give us a moment to let all this sink in. Oh my God.
Can you believe
No, I cannot.
Because Barbie's so exalted, how dare you challenge her image of perfection? And then as I was leaving, I remembered, I have left my plate dozens of times.
Redemption.
And it's just amazing. You know, it's like I didn't remember that. I mean, until later, but I didn't remember in the moment that that's why he said it, because he's known that I've done that, because, oh, I'm busy doing this and that. Oh, yeah, my plate's in there. Anyway, it was a good thing. It was a good thing to see, and now I just know I can remember sooner. So.
Yes, remember sooner. The last thing that human beings want is the most important thing that they can constantly being given if they're willing to receive it in that moment, and that is humility. Debbie's up.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I don't know, I was just compelled to get up, and hopefully I won't start bawling, but I was just thinking, or actually feeling grateful. Aren't we lucky to know something else exists besides our own puny little lives, that there is a greater possibility and that we were all meant to live with that or to understand that. I don't even know how to say it, but just knowing that something else exists besides what this nature gives itself to
Suffer over.
And this pain that I feel, is this what I'm a little confused. I'm giving myself this, aren't I? I mean, like I'm being filled with a pain that's not letting me feel the whole emptiness, I think. I'm not really sure what I'm asking you.
Does the knave have any purpose other than to serve the tools? So here's this perfectly empty place. Does it have an identity of its own? Or if it was mistaken in its identification, would it call itself the spokes? Would it call itself the liquid in the space? It's very difficult to get over the love of I until you see there's no love in it. You're not doing anything, Debbie. You're just asleep to what your attention is being taken by. And your attention is being taken by something that first decides this is an empty, terrible moment, and then conversely points to what you need to get the birds back. So that I'm in a constant vacillation. I'm the victim of my own vacillating mind and nothing else. Honest to God, nothing else. There's no victim in the whole of anything. Is there? Or does everything that predates, everything that pounces, everything that changes, everything that acts, everything that's acted on, is it not a singularity? The nave and the spokes, the empty space and the water, the yin and the yang, they are in a ceaseless interaction. You are in the ceaseless interaction of a mind that has created its own yin and its own yang, of its own wants and not wants. Basically, a mind, this is the issue, this is a comparative mind. That's all it knows to do. It derives its identity by comparing what it thinks is happening to what it thinks should have happened. What it thinks should have happened is imagined, and what it thinks needs to happen is imagined. And there's conflict between the two because they wouldn't exist without comparison, without a mind measuring itself according to what its role on the advisory board of God. It just never stops doing that. So here I'm in this immense pain. When is it enough? Look, I know this is hard to understand. There has to be a transition that you of yourself cannot make, but that you of yourself must see the need for. She has a family tragedy. She's suffering. Why do I have to suffer over a family tragedy? I know that sounds like blasphemy to you. It's not. It doesn't mean that I don't have pain. But why must my pain be this long face and drawing everybody into the web of my fears and concerns? Why does that have to be like that? You never question it because your identity is so established in it. Birds come, birds go. That's not your life. But your life is to take care and feed the birds when they're there, and then to clean up after they go so they have a new place to come to when you're done. I'm using words, they're not the best analogies, but that's the best I can tell you. You grieve when you lose somebody you love. Of course there's grief. But why is grief negative? Why is grief negative? It is, isn't it, for you? Why? Because now I'm empty. Forget that they died. Forget they're going through this. What about me? Yeah. And when you see that, the taste is so bad that you spit it from your mouth. That's what enough is. And until I see that, all I do is go through a purgatorial state. What do I do with the purgatorial state? What is born out of that purgatory? Am I purified, or do I become more punished and certain about my pain because of the condition? That's it. And nobody can, Christ himself couldn't fix you. He couldn't fix anybody. Did he heal, give the blind eyes to see? Yeah, I'm sure he did, actually. Did he heal, did he cause the cripple to walk? What do you think? A real church is a gathering place for blind, lame, deaf, and dumb human beings who finally seek the nave so that they can find out why they don't see, why they feel the way they do, and why they stumble into one another as they try to lift each other up. That's what a true school is. It's a hatchery for cuckoos. Keep the seatbelt on. Over to you, John.
I'm right here, Guy. We have several written questions, so I'll turn to one of those next. This written question came in during the weekend from Mike. It's kind of long, but we've edited it down a bit.
It's really long.
Yes.
I'm going to summarize it, John.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not going to have you read a book. And I know Kate already summarized it. Here's what Mike is basically saying. I'm blessed and I'm cursed with a good memory. I love the good part. I hate the bad part. What do I do? Is that a good summary, Kate? Yeah. I'm not diminishing his the augmentation that he's put into it, because his mind brings back certain incidences and he feels embarrassed by remembering what a mess he was, or what a muck he made out of the moment. Do you ever have memories like that? So he wants to know, what do I do about these painful memories that come up undocumented? He said, because I seem to be obsessed. I have he calls it a 3D memory. So Mike is proud of his memory. It's not Mike's memory. This came in some time ago. I think I read through it at one point. But a week, yeah, okay. I was thinking, okay, here's a test. You know that deal where I tell you to take a piece of paper and put it in your hand, and we call it a trouble? And then I say, well, what happens if I turn my hand over? I hope they can see this on the screen. What happens if I turn my hand over? Everybody knows we've been through this. What happens? It's out of my hand. And then I start talking to you. Holy mother of pearl. I didn't pick it up. How did it get? See, you downplay these incredibly sophisticated, deep examples. I didn't bring up the memory of that painful moment. It brings it up so that it can have me relive the sense of itself, so it can then make plans to get the birds out of the box or get new ones in to get rid of the painful memory. This is what human beings do. Mike, human beings, all of us, to whatever extent it's true, and God willing, one day it won't be true for you. We are memory replacers. That's what I do. I got a bunch of bad memories. And what I'm trying to do, where I'm going, what I'm shopping, why I'm buying, all the stuff is basically because some moment came along and triggered down in the dark, vast well of all that past unwanted experience. Up comes this memory. Well, hell, I don't want that memory. So I either go, I have a 3D memory. I have a great memory, but my memory is a problem for me because it drags me back into hell I don't want to go. No, memory did not drag you back into hell. You joined a memory in hell from which it came and don't know the truth of that. It's not you. But sure feels like me, doesn't it? Now we're in the deep south. I have to add some levity to this. It's just too much. So Mike, the problem isn't that you have these memories. They have their place. My wife and I need to remember where we go like to eat. That's an important memory. So I know to take 6th Street down to this block, make a left turn, get out my dough to eat pizza. But I don't need a memory that says, you need to go here and do this or get rid of that because of who and what you've been, you bad person, you. And then I give my attention to that, don't I? And as goes my attention, write it down, Mike, as goes my attention, so comes my experience. Then you'll ask, well, why in the name of God has my attention gone to something that I don't want, this painful memory? Then you'll start to understand, you didn't bring it up. What you didn't bring up, you don't have to go along with, and you can say, enough is enough. To you, John.
A couple of hands have popped up in the queue, guys, so we'll go next to Gino.
Okay, and then Leah is just dying to come up.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are you? It was 4 years ago, almost exactly right now, that I called you the first time when my wife had died.
I believe I
Could
do.
not have heard.
I believe I do.
You can't hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I could not have heard what you just said at all 4 years ago.
Yep. No
And
doubt.
in between then and now, I've heard it somewhat, on my own. But hearing what you had to say today, I can feel it to some extent, but I get it intellectually, totally. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
It does, Gino. And it's spot on, man. I'm beginning to see.
Yeah.
I was blind, I didn't know it, and I paid the price for that blindness. But that blindness is not real eye. That blindness belongs to an eye that wants to keep itself alive at the expense of my suffering and my pain and my grief. I wish I could remember it. I never can remember the exact dialogue. I should write it down because every once in a blue moon it comes to me. This fantastic scene from, gosh, you didn't remember the name, where Anthony Houghton, C.S. Lewis, Shadowland. God, if you've never read a book or seen the film, see it, Shadowland. So I'm not going to go into this whole thing, Gino, but here's the point, and it makes a full circle to what we're looking at. He had been completely removed from life, purely intellectual man. And then he meets this very engaging, willful, bright, brilliant woman who kind of challenges everything that he assumes about himself. And he can't help himself. He's drawn to her like steel to a magnet. And as he's drawn to her, lo and behold, he falls in love. But as he falls in love, as it goes along, turns out that she has cancer. And now he's in love with someone who's going to die. So the birds came, now the birds are going. And they're together having a picnic someplace, and he's all like morose, down on himself, depressed, can't bear the thought of the birds leaving. And this one, I can't remember the line, but it's so brilliant, C.S. Lewis. Something like, the joy of today doesn't exist without the pain of tomorrow. They're connected. So why are you, and this I say this to all of you so many times, why in the name of God do you want to live in the pain and the sorrow of something that living there you will never know that it can be intended to be a possibility of a new understanding? And let that be, in the field of light, that which you die for the purpose of letting it flower, so that you can understand the flower of your true nature is ceaselessly being born, flowering, dying, being born, flowering, dying. That's what you are. That's what the life of Christ was about. So that's my answer, Gino. I hope it lands someplace good in your heart. I wish it so. On we go, John.
It does indeed. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If it was your birthday, happy birthday.
No, it wasn't mine, but I like birthdays. When my wife and I go out, I often tell the waiter it's our anniversary. I'm such a bad person. Leah, come on up. Leah's coming, then we'll take another hand, John.
All right, Guy.
Hi, my name is Leah. So two things connected to what Deborah was sharing. It's so interesting because this morning I was thinking about a time when I was just on my knees in humility, just a difficult time that Leah couldn't figure out, and finally had to just stop. And there was an emptiness, and I actually had written this. There was an emptiness, but what I noticed was, in thinking about it, there was still pain, but I wasn't identified with the pain.
Yes.
It was so different.
Yes.
It's not that the pain's not there. It's there, but it's okay. It's just there. There's not a Leah going, poor me, this and that, and blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah. This is French, blah, 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 blah.
The boring conversation, right, Kate? So anyway, the pain was there. And I really appreciated that this morning because it's not just in those moments.
No.
It's
always there.
always. It's always there.
Yes, it is.
So back to this talk. What a beautiful talk.
Take all the time you want. That always gets a laugh, doesn't it?
And this is what brought tears to my eyes today. It seems to be happening a lot. Without the emptiness of a dark sky, we cannot see the fullness of a starlit night. And in talking even about the emptiness in the moment of humility, in that moment, there's so much light pouring in.
Yes.
You don't know what it is, though. It's just, there's so much light pouring in. But you also have to leave room for the emptiness. And this nature can just stay so busy filling itself with itself. You alluded to, this is something else recently. Leah knows how to create her happy place,
You have a happy place?
I do, many. And and Leah can create this little world of, let's do these 2 hours of this happy place, and then we'll do these 2 hours of this happy place, and just create this little calendar of happy place, yeah.
Who wants to hang out with Leah?
Well, and as you say that, I realize it just becomes Leah's world, and if you fit into Leah's bubble, then great, but if you're not in Leah's bubble of happy places, then off you go. But the emptiness of a dark sky. And what's beautiful about that is it's a dark sky. And without that humility, the willingness to be in the dark sky, the light can't come in. Oh, thank you for this talk. It was just beautiful.
Good. I would just add one thing to her comment so that you can gradually understand it. Your will must become the same as God's will. Then you don't have to will anything. This is what the work is about. Coming to the end of the place where you keep trying to figure out what you have to do in order to create this relationship with emptiness and to make it profitable. You are that space. You are that space. You're what comes into it. You're what's united there. You're what dies there. You're what is born there. And it requires no effort, just a willingness to attend. In the end, that's what everything boils down to. One must be able to claim their attention, recognize that it's been stolen from them, replace it as best they can, time and time again, into the place that everything about their usual attention is trying to escape, and then let the flowers come up. Appreciate the flowers and let them die, because new flowers will replace them. And you see that as an actuality. That's what so-called enlightenment is. You don't bring the light in. The light is already there. To you, John.
All right, we'll go next to Dwight in our queue. Guy?
Dwight from Texas.
Dwight?
Hey, how are you doing?
Texas, man.
You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you plenty.
Okay, good. I'm so glad to be back with GoToWebinar. I've been struggling with my computer for about 3 months now, and the last technical innovation I had was the IBM Selectric typewriter. I know that you can relate to that since you're so much older than me. By 2 months.
Let's take the next call, John.
Oh, no. I got like Leah, I had what would used to be a really bad memory come up, or I never really experienced it. I just kind of hid from it, and it came up, and it was almost. It wasn't like I was trying to not identify with it. I wasn't identified with it, and when I looked at it, I had a deeper meaning of what happened. I mean, a really deeper meaning of what happened.
Sure.
And then I let it go, and it was just kind of a wonderful experience. And I said, I really understand now why that situation has created so much fear in me and stuff.
Good.
So it was a great,
Yeah.
it's kind of like,
Dwight, it's nice to hear from you. I'll try to get Kate on the straight and narrow so you don't have a problem with your computer.
she tried to help me all she could. And
Yeah, I know
and
she
I
did.
had
Believe me, Dwight. I'm thick as a brick myself. Stay close, man.
Oh.
I'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Back to you, John.
All right, Guy, I'm going to come on. I'm going to read a written question, this time from Susanna. Susanna says, can you please discuss anger? What are we to do about it?
Oh, Susanna, won't you try to see? I'm going to put it back on you, Susanna, and ask you a question. What can you do about your anger? What have you done with your anger? What has become of your life and your relationships because of your anger? We all know the answer to those questions is nothing good, isn't it? So built into the question that she's asking, and it's natural to ask, everybody wants to know, I'm angry. What do I do with this anger? You have to see, Susanna, beyond the shadow of a doubt, A, there's nothing you can do with it because it's not yours. That's why. How will I ever know it's not my anger when, or not my grief, or not my despair, or not my sense of inadequacy, how will I ever know that? Well, we start, don't we, by spending our entire life trying to subdue the dragon called these dark states. An endless St. George am I, trying to put my foot on the back of the neck of that dragon and slay it. She wants to know, what am I going to do with this fire-breathing Susanna? Please hear me as best you can. I mean this in all seriousness. See how often you're burned by it, and stop blaming people for the flames that are consuming you. You do that, you'll start to understand something about your anger that won't need Guy to explain it. You won't need a Bible, you won't need a religious leader, you won't need a politician to direct your anger and tell you what to invest it in. You won't need any of that, Susanna, because you'll have started the process of liberating yourself from Susanna. Let something new be born. Out of the flame of anger can come the light of realization. But you have to know how to use it. I'm describing it to you. Terry's on stage, John.
Hi, everyone. My name is Terry. Well, a couple of things. First of all, when Leah was speaking, and she was speaking about those moments where we're brought to our knees and how there's so much light that's pouring in, and it just occurred to me, like, why wouldn't we want more of those moments? Because we see what, after we go through that, the change that takes place in those moments.
Let me interrupt for a split second. You, me, can't want those moments. Because you, me, everyone is what is awakened by them. I can want the awakening, and that's all I need to be concerned with.
Right.
And that's an important
It's a huge distinction.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Okay? Because
absolutely.
then I got to, why? I should love these, ask Doug, I should love to be upset. Now, you can't love to be upset, but you can understand the value of it.
Right.
Right? Go ahead now.
The lower nature is absolutely
Yes.
incredible, right?
Yeah, it's laying there in the dark, incomplete, asleep. You sneak up on a dog and you give it a shout. Dog not going to go, Right? It has that reaction. It has to have that reaction. It is being asked in one respect to react. It is our relationship with that reaction that determines what comes out of that moment.
Because it can only resist itself.
There you go.
But I was just thinking about this nature of desire, which is want and not want, right? So of course, here's this moment, the birds are here. There's always going to be the not want that comes. So there's absolutely nothing at that level that can ever do anything, and that's why our attention is of utmost importance, because we have to be above that and see that. And I remember Ellen recently on one of our study groups, she was talking about how, I think there was like a financial outpouring that she had to make. Like there was this time where she was putting out money, and she had said before that took place, there was an influx of income. Here's this time where there was a receiving of money, then here's now the outpouring of the money. That came to mind in this talk. But of course, you have to be careful with the self, because the self, if you get the self involved in it, where there's identification, then there's like, oh, I'm putting out money now, but then, I'll be getting money later. It's not about that at all. It's about seeing this movement, seeing the emptiness and the fullness, and seeing it, using our attention, being in the moment, and watching these parts of ourselves. So,
Over to you, John.
I have Steve in the queue here. We'll go next to him. Good morning, Steve. Are you there? Hello, Steve.
On we go. See if you can't make a connection. If we can't, we can't.
Yeah.
Who else?
Kate sent me a note that she said that Steve had written in just a summary, and I can share that.
Okay.
Steve just said that he wanted to say Steve is tired of listening to Steve's mind chatter. It's so nonsensical and destructive, so full of pain and anguish.
Yeah.
Enough. Guy's teachings have been instrumental in this realization. Thank you. That was what Steve, I think, wanted to say.
Look, everybody, you know, what did Buddha call this? The monkey mind. That's what he called it, the monkey mind. Why? Chatter, 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 banana, banana, banana. Chatter, chatter, banana, banana. Banana chatter. Chatter, banana, banana, chatter. That's what it does. Heidi's up.
Hello, my name is Heidi, and I wanted to share something about the idea of what's next. Because when grief comes to visit, it seems to take over all of our attention. And yet, when we don't resist what's touching us, when we don't resist the pain, our eyes, there's a veil that's just lifted, and a greater life is revealed. And my personal example is I had a dog for 13 years, and I called him my practice child. And I used the interaction with him to learn about myself and how I treated another living thing that's that close. And I knew every day, at some point, there's going to be an exchange. He was given, he'll be returned. And that was very crisp in my mind. And so when the time came and the exchange was made, it was obviously painful, but there was a greater life that I hadn't seen that was already there. For some reason, one of our neighbor's cats had 5 little barn cats in our haystack, which I paid no attention to because my dog would chase them off as he chased off all the deer and all the birds and any living creature that came near us. And I just say all that because it was this ceaseless movement of new life replacing old life. I didn't give it to myself, but like I said, it just felt like from my attention being fixed on the one love and that love fading back into the earth, then I could see that there was more love being given, and I could serve that new love, or I could stay in memory of something that had passed. So again, this work is so sweet and so gentle, and it lets us, lets us suffer as long as we need to until we have an appetite for new life.
What's left, John?
Well, Guy, we have our queue is wide open. All we have left is this one comment that I have from Roy that he asked me to share. He said, "Hello, Guy. Imagine if your classes were required for dating and marriage relationships. You are helping me see how my inner warthog gets stirred up in these relationships, which for me comes back to, I want to be the center of attention. Thanks for all you do."
Well, that leaves me speechless, which is rare, so I'll see you all later.